So if we look here at the employment rate by the type of disability, you can see from the previous slide we have the overall disability employment rate. But if you look at the next column, you can see someone who has a sensory disability. So that would be, say, vision or hearing. Those are probably the highest amount of people that have full-time employment. Then the numbers go down quite dramatically. So any type of physical disability, using wheelchairs or other assistive devices, mental disabilities, numbers even lower, self-care, abilities to do activities of daily living, a go outside disability, access to transport, ability to leave the house, and other disabilities that are related strictly to performing a specific job. So although we've had 20 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act, clearly we can do a lot better when it comes to getting people with disabilities employed. I think technology's probably had a lot to do with that, and it's probably going to get even better. So, but we definitely have a lot more room to go. If you look at the numbers, employment, so people with disabilities who are employed full-time each year, a little under 22% versus almost 57% for people without disabilities. And people with disabilities make about half the income as persons without disabilities. A story that came out this summer, which is somewhat surprising, is that organizations such as Goodwill can pay people with disabilities, and they are allowed to do this far below minimum wage in order to provide them with employment. And they are allowed to do that because they say, you know, people may need to work at a slower pace, or they may need frequent breaks or sick leave, and, you know, that's how they justify that, but it may not always make it right. But that was a little bit of controversy that was going on over the summertime. Now let's shift gears and talk about the Family and Medical Leave Act. This may affect some of you either now or very soon in your life. We'll also have some class presentations about that. So it's been around about 20 years, and, you know, make sure you've read the links on Blackboard. A person can receive up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Now, if they have, you know, vacation time or sick time that allows for them to be paid, that is fine. But, you know, the leave is generally unpaid. For birth, adoption, or foster placement of a child, any time within the 1 year period of receiving that child. So it may not necessarily be on immediate placement. Personal or family illness. For example, you know, my nephew was diagnosed with cancer, so he was off work for a significant amount of time for that. You know, or you have a family member who's ill, caring for a sick, aging parent, caring for a sick child. Or if a family member is on active military duty, or if you're on active military duty, or you're caring for a veteran with a disability post active duty. So, you know, so the employer, the job must be held for you. It must be your same job. Can't be an equivalent job. This does apply to employers with 50 plus employees. So if it is a very, very small business, Family and Medical Leave Act may not apply to you. So that's really important to know. Plus, you also must have worked there at least 1 year. So if you've been at your job 3 months, like what my nephew was when he found out he had cancer, you know, they did not have to hold the job for him. They did, but legally they were not required to do so because he was not eligible under the Family and Medical Leave Act. So this is very important to know, that every time you change jobs, basically the timeline starts all over again as far as your eligibility for family and medical leave. So even if your job changed, maybe you were a temporary employee and you went to being a full-time employee, that's a new position. Or if you were on a contract and you went to a different contract. So sometimes that can affect you. It's always important to find out every time you change jobs or change positions, even if it's within the same company, that you find out if you are covered under Family and Medical Leave Act. Because a lot of people think they are covered only to find out, they work for an employer that is not covering them or they're not eligible to be covered.